Most players never touch the world type setting. You hit Create World, the default loads up, and that is it for the next 200 hours of your life. But there are 6 different world types in Minecraft, and some of them change the game so much that calling them the same game is genuinely a stretch. Today we are going through every single one, what they do, why they exist, and which ones are actually worth playing. Let's get into it. Default. The default world type is the one everyone plays, the one every tutorial assumes you are on, and the one you have probably never thought about because it is just called default. But there is a lot going on under the surface that makes it the baseline for the entire game. Every biome generates here, all 60 plus of them, across the overworld, nether, and end, with the standard distribution Mojang has been tweaking since the very first version of Minecraft. Mountains generate at reasonable heights, oceans are spread out evenly, deserts sit next to plains, and biomes blend into each other smoothly. Terrain generation uses noise-based algorithms to create realistic-looking landscapes. Caves carve through stone, rivers flow downhill, and ore generates at the depths you would expect. All structures generate normally too. Villages, strongholds, ancient cities, ocean monuments, woodland mansions, bastions, fortresses, and trial chambers, everything Mojang has added in the last 15 years shows up exactly where it is supposed to. It is the most balanced world type in the game, and the only one designed around the assumption that you actually want to play Minecraft as Mojang intended. Every other world type on this list is a deliberate change from this baseline, and the changes range from interesting to completely game-breaking. Default is also the one world type where every advancement and progression system works exactly as expected. Switch to anything else and some of those start breaking. Killing the Wither becomes impossible in some setups, and the Ender Dragon fight assumes structures that other world types do not generate. Most players will never touch any other option, and honestly, that is fine. Default has more content than most players will ever finish, and Mojang adds more to it with every major update. Superflat. Superflat is exactly what it sounds like, a completely flat world made of stacked layers with no terrain, no caves, no mountains, no oceans, nothing. By default, it generates as a plains biome with a layer of bedrock, 2 layers of dirt, and a single layer of grass on top. And that is the entire world, forever, in every direction. Most players use it for building and redstone because the flatness makes everything easier. No terrain getting in the way, no biome borders messing up your design, and the ability to instantly start building without clearing land first. It is the default world for creative mode builders, and a massive portion of every redstone tutorial you have ever watched was made on a Superflat world. But the actually interesting thing about Superflat is how customizable it is. You can build your own layer presets, choosing exactly which blocks generate at which heights, and even pick the biome the world generates in. Want a world that is 60 layers of diamond blocks? Done. Want a world that is purely netherrack with a layer of glass on top? Also done. Want a world generated as a swamp biome so witches and slimes spawn naturally? You get the idea. And speaking of which, if you are enjoying the video so far, drop a like and let me know in the comments which world type you have actually tried. I am genuinely curious how many of you have played Superflat past 5 minutes. The most interesting use of Superflat, though, is the survival challenge it creates. Pick the plains preset, set the difficulty to hard, and suddenly you are in one of the most brutal survival situations in the game. No trees, no water beyond what naturally spawns, no caves to mine, no ores to find, no mountains to hide in. Mobs spawn everywhere at night because there is nothing to block sightlines. Villages and structures still try to generate, but in a completely flat world that often produces some genuinely strange results. Strongholds floating in the air, ocean monuments sitting on the surface with no water around them, and ancient cities appearing as a weird square in the middle of nowhere. Some players consider Superflat survival the hardest legitimate way to play Minecraft, because every single resource you need has to come from structures that generate strangely or from villager trading, which is its own challenge when there is nowhere to actually farm crops normally. It is the world type that has the widest range of use cases by far, from chill creative building to the most punishing survival mode in the game, and the fact that all of that exists in one option that most players have never opened is honestly Mojang at their best for once. Large biomes. Large biomes is the world type most players have seen in the menu, hovered over once and then gone right back to default. At first glance, it looks identical to a normal world. Same terrain, same structures, same mobs, just scaled up. Biomes are roughly 16 times their normal size, which sounds modest until you actually try to travel across one. A normal forest in default takes a minute or 2 to cross. A forest in large biomes can stretch for thousands of blocks in every direction. Oceans become massive. You can sail for 10 minutes without seeing land. Deserts become so wide that finding the edge feels like a fever dream. The interesting part is how this changes the way you actually play. Finding specific biomes becomes a real challenge because you cannot just walk a few hundred blocks and expect the biome to change. change. If you spawn in plains and need a jungle, you might be traveling for an hour to find one. The same goes for structures. Woodland mansions, ocean monuments, and ancient cities are all rarer to stumble across because the biomes they require are spread so far apart. Maps become significantly less useful at default zoom, and exploring without an elytra feels like the slowest possible way to spend your evening. There are some genuine upsides though. Each biome feels like an actual place rather than a tiny patch of trees you pass through in 10 seconds. Villages feel like isolated outposts in the middle of nowhere, which fits the survival aesthetic better than default does. It is the world type that rewards players who like exploration and travel, and punishes players who want to find specific biomes quickly. Most players will never need it, but if you have ever wanted Minecraft to feel like a slightly more serious survival experience, large biomes is genuinely worth trying. Amplified. Amplified is the world type Mojang did not mean to create. It was born from a coordinate mistake during development. A developer accidentally pushed terrain generation values way past their intended limits, and the result looked so absurd that they decided to keep it as an actual world type. So everything about Amplified is technically a bug that became a feature, and the bug is impressive. Mountains shoot straight up to the world height limit, with cliffs hundreds of blocks tall sitting next to ravines that drop all the way to bedrock. Trees grow on impossibly steep slopes. Floating islands appear out of nowhere. Caves carve through mountainsides at angles that should not be possible, and the entire world looks less like Minecraft and more like a fever dream of what Minecraft could be on the worst possible drugs. The biomes are still the same: plains, forests, deserts, oceans, but every single one of them is pushed to vertical extremes that completely change how you interact with them. A normal forest becomes a forest growing on the side of a 200-block cliff. A plains biome becomes a plateau hovering above an ocean trench. A desert wraps around an impossibly tall sand mountain. And speaking of which, if you are enjoying the video so far, hit subscribe so you do not miss the next one. We cover every Minecraft thing there is, and the next video is already in the works. The funniest part of Amplified is what happens to structures. Mojang's structure generation does not care that the world is now mostly vertical, so villages still try to generate exactly the way they would in default. The result is villages clinging to the sides of cliffs, half buried in mountains, with houses connected by paths that lead straight off a cliff into the void below. Villagers walk around like nothing is wrong while their entire civilization is one wrong step away from gravity, ending them permanently. Strongholds and ancient cities still generate underground, but the underground in Amplified is so massive and stretched out that finding anything specific becomes significantly harder than usual. Ocean monuments occasionally generate floating in midair because the ocean they were supposed to be in is now a 100-block deep canyon. It is the most visually impressive world type by a huge margin, but it is also genuinely hard to play in. Travel is exhausting because everything is vertical. Falling is the leading cause of death. Building anything practical means terraforming first, and even basic exploration becomes a parkour course. Amplified is the world type for players who want Minecraft to look like a screensaver and do not care about being efficient at any of it. It is not designed for serious survival. It is designed to be looked at, and honestly, for that purpose, it works perfectly. Single biome. Single biome is the world type that turns Minecraft into a custom challenge before you even start playing. The entire overworld generates as one biome of your choice. Same biome forever in every direction. The nether and end still generate normally, but the surface is locked to whatever you picked from the drop-down menu, and the biome you pick matters more than most players realize. If you pick something reasonable like plains or forest, the game plays out like a default world with less variety. The interesting choices start when you pick biomes that were never meant to make up an entire world. A desert single biome world has no trees anywhere, and no trees means no wood, which means no crafting table, no tools, no anything. You can technically scrape by with cactus and dead bushes, but the early game becomes a brutal survival challenge purely because you cannot get basic resources. The deep dark single biome world is probably the most insane option. The entire surface generates as the deep dark, complete with skulk sensors and shriekers everywhere you go. Sleep is impossible because warden anxiety follows you across the entire map, and that is before you account for the lack of trees and natural food. Ocean single biome turns the surface into one endless ocean with no land in sight, forcing you to either build floating bases or dig into the seabed. Some players genuinely speedrun this version because of how absurd it is. Single biome is technically a sandbox option, but most players who try it end up using it as a self-imposed challenge mode. The combination of consistent terrain and missing resources creates puzzles default never has. How do you build a base with no trees? How do you farm in a biome where nothing grows? How do you find diamonds when the surface offers no clues about what is underneath? It is the world type that makes you appreciate just how much variety default Minecraft actually has, by removing all of it at once. Debug Mode. Debug Mode is the world type Mojang did not really want you to find. It is hidden behind a keyboard shortcut. Hold Alt while cycling through world types in the menu, and a new option appears that most players have gone their entire Minecraft career without ever seeing. And once you load it up, you understand why. Debug Mode is not a playable world in any traditional sense. There is no terrain, no biomes, no mobs, no structures, and no survival mechanics. Instead, what you get is a massive flat grid of every single block in the game, laid out one per square, with every possible state that block can be in. Want to see what every variation of a stair block looks like? They are all there. Want to see every direction a piston can face? All of them, in a perfectly organized line. Want to see every possible state of a redstone wire, every leaf type, every fence connection, every door variant, all laid out in a grid that stretches on for hundreds of blocks in every direction. It is essentially a museum of every block state Minecraft has ever had. The catch is you cannot interact with any of it. In survival mode, you cannot break blocks, you cannot place blocks, you cannot mine, you cannot craft. Even in creative mode, breaking the grid blocks is restricted in ways that make actually using the world impossible. It is purely a viewing tool designed for developers to visually verify that every block state renders correctly, and for texture pack creators to see exactly how their textures look across every possible variation. The game still functions around it though. Day and night cycle continues, weather still happens, hunger still drains in survival, and you can still die, which is a problem because there is no food, no water, no shelter, and nothing to do. So debug mode in survival is essentially a slow death simulator surrounded by an art gallery of block states. The mode has become more interesting over the years simply because the number of block states keeps growing. Every update, Mojang adds new blocks, new variations, and new states, and the debug mode grid grows accordingly. Looking at a debug mode world from version 1.5 versus the current version shows just how much Minecraft has changed over the years in pure block variety alone. Most players will load debug mode once, walk around for 2 minutes, take a screenshot, and never open it again. And that is exactly what it is designed for. It is not a world type meant to be played, it is a world type meant to be looked at and then closed. Mojang basically left a developer tool sitting in the game menu, and most players have walked past it for years without ever knowing it exists. And that is every world type in Minecraft, fully explained. Most players will never touch anything outside default, but knowing what the other options actually do makes the next world you create a lot more interesting. If you enjoyed it, drop a like and let me know in the comments which world type you are going to try first. Subscribe if you are not already, and the next video is already up waiting for you. Go check it out.